welcome back to my channel. Today is an incredibly special day. We've officially hit over 10,000 subscribers. By the time you guys see this video, I may have a little bit over that, but I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you so much. This milestone truly means the world to me and to every single subscriber, viewer, and supporter watching me. Whether you've been here from the beginning or just recently joined, I'm incredibly grateful. Your likes, comments, and shares and feedback mean the world to me. It's because of you that I'm able to do what I love and continue to grow. First, I'm going to start by removing my Polygel nails using the 1 kill remover. I've been getting a lot of questions about the Jello peel-off system that I use. This particular product works exclusively with the Jello peel-off base coat, and it comes in a kit. I've linked it in the description box below for you guys. To remove the nails, simply add a drop of the 1 kill remover to your cuticle and let it sit for around 30 seconds. This will allow the remover to work its magic, making them pop off really easily without the need for a soak off. I might make a separate video diving into how I use the Jello. Let me know if anyone would be interested in that. This is the inspiration for today's nail set. I'll credit the original artist in the description box below, so be sure to check them out on Instagram. The colors of this set immediately caught my eye. I don't usually do purple sets, so I thought why not give it a try. First, I'm going to clip my nails shorter using my nail clippers. Then I'll add a drop of the Sally Hansen cuticle remover directly onto my cuticle area. Let that sit for about 15 seconds, and then I use a cuticle pusher to gently push back my cuticles. After that, I use the pointy end of my cuticle pusher to scrape off any dead skin from the nail plate, and I repeat this process on each nail and aim to finish within a minute. Once the cuticles are all cleaned up, I'll wash my hands with warm soapy water. If there's any leftover cuticle on the skin, I'll gently nip it off with some cuticle nippers, but this step is purely for aesthetics and it's not necessary for retention. Next, I'll gently buff my nails using a 240 grit buffing block. You can also use a 240 grit sanding band at 5,000 RPM, but I prefer to just lightly buff my nails because I do them so frequently and I don't need to buff that much off. Afterward, I'll wipe away the dust from my nails with some acetone. I'll now apply a thin coat of the Jello peel-off base coat to my nails and cure it for 60 seconds. Next, I'm grabbing my nail tips from Amazon and sizing them to fit my nail bed, making sure that they align perfectly from sidewall to sidewall. For this set, I'm using a base coat to attach my nail tips to my natural nails instead of a regular nail glue. The Jello peel-off base coat leaves a tacky surface, which makes it difficult for a traditional nail glue to bond and dry properly. You can use any gel base coat that you have on hand. I'm using this one from Madame Glam. I'll apply a thin layer of the base coat where the tip will meet my natural nail, then flash cure it in place for about 15 seconds. After that, I'll fully cure them for 45 seconds to ensure that it's all set. Next, I'm going to clip my nails to a medium long length. Now it's time to file. I'll be using a 180 grit sanding band on my e-file and set it to 4,000 RPM, and I'll gently blend the tips into my natural nails by lightly passing the sanding band over the area where the nail tip meets the natural nail, creating a smooth, seamless transition. I'll also etch the entire surface of the nail tips to help the polygel adhere better. I highly recommend this step as I've learned the hard way that without it, the tips can peel off at the bottom, which can be a little troublesome. I'll repeat this process for all of the nails. I'm using a 100 and 180 grit hand file, but I recommend using the 180 grit side to shape the tips as it's much easier to work with. I'll start by filing the edges of the nail tips to make them lay flatter and straighter as they tend to curve down naturally. I'll also file the bottom of the tips to ensure that they're straight and that the corners are sharp. Using some rubbing alcohol, I'm going to wipe down the nail bed area. I actually forgot to add a layer of base coat here. So to ensure better retention of the polygel, it's important to apply a thin layer of base coat to both the natural nail and the tips. I'm using 2 polygels from Makartt today, the shade Cheeky and a clear polygel. If you have a white polygel that you can use instead of the clear, you can use that. I'll also be using Makartt's Nail Surface Cleaner 2-in-1 formula, which acts as a slip solution. However, 99% isopropyl alcohol works just as well. My room was quite cold since it started to snow in my city, and the temperature has dropped below 10 degrees, which is about 14 degrees Fahrenheit for those in the US. I had been keeping my polygel in a box next to the window, which you can tell made it a struggle to get out of the tube. Because the polygel was so cold, I had to use a lot of pressure to mold it onto my nails. I start by applying my first bead at the free edge and cut it off at the tip. When working with nails at this length, I prefer the 2-bead method because it makes it easier to form the apex by layering the product. I saturated my brush by dipping it into my dish, making sure that each bristle is fully coated with the slip solution. Then I tapped the side of my dish to drain off any excess liquid, and then I took a lint-free wipe and tapped my brush on there as well just for a second to remove any remaining solution. And this will leave the bristles perfectly coated with the perfect amount of slip solution each time. I begin by gently patting down the first bead and distributing the product across the surface. Then I push the gel towards the edges. It's important to keep your hand light. If you apply too much pressure, the gel can easily stick to the bristles, so take your time and use gentle patting motions, and if needed, light swiping motions to move the product. Once the sidewalls are coated, I blend the polygel onto the nail bed, smoothing it out and swiping any excess towards the bottom. Always check from different angles to ensure that everything is smooth and even, and once you're satisfied, use the spatula end of the polygel brush to remove any excess gel. I then cure this first bead for about 90 seconds before moving on to my second bead, also known as the cuticle bead. A pea-sized amount is usually enough. I repeat the same process and gently pat the gel down, letting it disperse, and then angle the brush to tuck the gel into the cuticles and sidewalls. Again, I keep my brush moist with slip solution to avoid the gel getting stuck inside, and once the sidewalls and cuticle area are neatly covered, I swipe the excess gel towards the tip of the nails. To ensure that there's no gel touching my skin, I swipe a clean brush around the cuticle area before curing the nails for another 90 seconds. I'm applying the cheeky polygel to my thumb, pointer, middle, and pinky fingers on my left hand, leaving the ring finger clear because I'll be painting that one white. This is actually where the white polygel would have come in handy. Although my polygel was really cold and hard to work with, it was still easier to work with than with warm polygel. Warm polygel tends to refuse to hold its shape and can become way too runny. Ideally, polygel should be at room temperature, but that can be tough to manage during the colder months. Whether your polygel is cold or stiff or warm and runny, you can still use it. You just need to adjust the pressure you apply. Once all the nails are done, you'll notice that there's a sticky inhibition layer left, and to remove it, you just need to take a lint-free wipe soaked in acetone and gently wipe it off, and this will remove that layer completely. Next, we're going to file the nails. I'm using an 80 grit sanding band on my mandrel bit to file down any bulk. The coarser grit will get rid of some of that extra thickness and speed up the process. I'm setting my drill to 18,000 RPM and using back and forth motions across the entire surface of the nail from side to side. I make sure to cover every inch of the polygel nail. Huge shout out to one of my subscribers who suggested pulling out my mandrel bit a little more when working with longer nails. It was a total game changer and it made filing long nails so much easier compared to when the drill is all the way inside the barrel. If you're doing nails at this length, definitely try this technique. It works so much better. You'll know you've filed enough when the entire surface of the nail has been etched by the sanding band and everything looks scratched. If there are spots that still look untouched, that means that the nail is still uneven and you'll need to keep filing. Once the whole nail is evenly etched, I'll focus on the tips of my nails, since I like to have them a little bit thinner there. To keep the shape of the apex intact, it's super important not to overfile the stress area. That's where the nail takes the most pressure. The stress area is usually in the center of the nail and it plays a big role in the strength of the entire enhancement. To protect it while filing, you can get more control by tilting and angling your drill just right. Once I'm ready to work on the cuticle area, I'll lower the speed of my drill to around 6,000 RPM. This is a crucial step because the cuticle area needs to be treated gently to avoid any damage to the natural nail. I'll carefully move the sanding band around the cuticle area and do this until the polygel is blended and flush with the nail. This will give the entire enhancement a more seamless and natural look. I'm going to continue filing with the same hand file I used earlier. I'll be using the 180 grit side to focus on filing the sidewalls of my nails. By angling the file towards the center of the nail, I can help sharpen and straighten the square shape and make the edges more crisp. I'll also file the free edge of my nail to ensure that it's perfectly straight. Next, I'll use a 240 grit buffing block to smooth everything out. I'll buff each nail for about 30 seconds to a minute, just long enough to remove any scratches and ensure that the nail is smooth. After filing and buffing, I'll wash my hands with soapy water to remove any dust, and then I'll spray my nails with some isopropyl alcohol to get rid of any oils on the surface. This step is crucial for the gel polish to adhere properly. For the polish, I'm using Her Strength by Madame Glam, which is one of their newer gel polishes. The color isn't an exact match to the one in the original photo I'm using for inspiration, but it has a lovely gold and iridescent sparkle that I think will work beautifully. The original had larger, chunkier iridescent sparkles, but I'm working with what I have and I love how this one looks. I'm going to use Perfect White from Madame Glam, a white gel polish, for the base color of my Peppermint Candy design. To ensure maximum opacity, I applied 2 coats of the white gel polish, curing in between each layer for a full 60 seconds. If there's only one gel polish I could recommend from this video, it would definitely be Her Strength. It's an incredibly beautiful gel polish that pairs beautifully with a variety of designs, making it a must-have for anyone who loves pink. The formula is smooth and builds up well, and it's perfect for both simple and intricate nail art. Madame Glam also offers a blue version called Soft Lullaby, which is almost identical to Her Strength. Here's an update on how the base is looking. It's turning out really pretty. I've got some sparkly pink nails and a couple of white nails ready for the peppermint pattern. Now I'm going to add Blissfully Yours from Madame Glam, a lilac purple shade, which I'll have it linked down below for you guys if it's still available on their site. And I'm using a 20mm liner brush, which is in my opinion one of the best sizes for line work like French tips. To create the French tips, I'll be using this liner brush to carefully paint my smile line with the white gel polish. I decided to go with a slightly deeper, rounded French shape, which I thought would complement the lengths of my nails and suit the overall design. This shape works particularly well because it creates enough space for the peppermint pattern. After I create the smile line, I'll start filling in the side corners with the same 20mm liner brush. Then I take some gel polish directly from the bottle to fill in the rest of the French. Make sure that you're working in thin layers to avoid an uneven surface. If needed, you can also use a small oval nail brush to smooth out the sides of the French tips. I made sure to apply 2 coats of the white gel polish to make it as opaque as possible, and curing in between each layer for about 60 seconds. For my ring finger on my dominant hand, I also added a French tip with the white gel polish again. I wanted it to be identical, so I carefully followed the same technique. Then I did the same with the purple on my pinky. Initially, I thought that 1 coat of Blissfully Yours would be enough, but I ended up needing 2 coats for full opacity. Just like the other nail, I applied 2 coats of the polish, curing again in between each coat for around 60 seconds. If any gel polish accidentally gets on your skin, make sure to wipe it off with some acetone before curing. Then I switch back to the white gel polish to add a white French tip to the thumb on my dominant hand. Here's what the base looks like so far. We've got a mixed color scheme with the white and lavender French tips. And I left the middle sections blank for now because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with them yet. Now I'm going to introduce a new polish to the mix, Baby Pink from Madame Glam. I'll be adding a little bit of that on my glass palette, but first I'll continue with the lavender gel polish. Using the same 20mm liner brush from earlier, I'm going to draw slanted stripes to create the peppermint pattern. To make my lines sharper and a little more defined, I use my oval brush dipped in a little bit of acetone. This helps me swipe along the inner edges to create crisp, clean lines, especially around the smile line of the French. After that, I cured the design for 20 seconds to ensure that it's set before moving on to the next section. For the next part, I painted another section within the proximity of the right side of the French tip, making sure to swipe the edges again to keep the line work sharp. Since I had already cured the first section, the design didn't budge when I swiped my oval brush across, which is why it's so important to flash cure in between each section. Next, I created a third stripe at the free edge of my French tip. I then added another stripe on the opposing side, cleaned up the edges, and added a final section near the smile line. Because the gel polish was looking a little sheer, I went over each section with a second coat to ensure that the stripes were opaque and vibrant. Once that was done, I wiped off the lavender gel polish from my liner brush. No need to soak it in acetone or alcohol or anything like that, and I switched to the baby pink gel polish. I added a few pink stripes in between the lavender sections, and then I used my oval brush to clean up those edges, pointing towards the middle to make them sharp and precise. This really helped me create a cleaner, more polished look compared to leaving the edges as they were. After that, I went in with a white gel polish, carefully applied it over the smile line of my French tips to emphasize that double line effect, as it was seen in the inspiration picture. I'm really happy with how it turned out so far. The design is coming together beautifully. Now I'm going to repeat the same process on my thumb, creating a total of 5 sections, starting near the smile line. This method is really helping to create a crisp peppermint swirl pattern across all my nails. I highly recommend starting near the smile line when creating your peppermint stripes. Initially, I started at the bottom of the French tips, and it caused some complications with the layout. The bottom sections ended up being way too big, and the design looked very uneven. Luckily, I wasn't curing in between those sections, so I was able to wipe it off of my nails with some acetone. So in my experience, starting at the top of the smile line and working your way around the French really helps maintain better balance and proportions for this design. For my thumb, I didn't add 2 coats of the lavender gel polish. Although I am capable of creating designs with my non-dominant hand, it's still a little bit difficult for me to do so I decided to apply a slightly thicker coat instead, hoping that it will be opaque enough without having to overwork myself. I repeated the same steps as before, but I only used 1 coat of the lavender. Despite that, I think it turned out really cute. It's a little easier when you're not stressing about perfection, and it still looked great in the end. I started by using the lavender gel polish to create curved lines across the white nails, forming a full candy pattern. This was similar to the peppermint design, but instead, the stripes extended all the way across from the nail from side to side. And I made them slightly thicker for a bolder look, giving it a true candy cane effect. This also adds a nice contrast to the thinner peppermint lines. Since the candy cane stripes didn't require precise cleanups or detailed edges, this step was much easier to do. There wasn't much room to add more stripes like in the inspiration picture, but I was able to fit 4 stripes across each nail. I applied a second coat of the lavender gel polish to each stripe to make them look more opaque. Then I used the baby pink gel polish to add thin stripes in the middle of the lavender stripes, following their exact curvature. I didn't clean my brush in between colors, I just wiped it with a lint-free wipe. I also used the pink polish to double line the purple French tip, just like in the inspiration photo. It looks really cute, and I only needed 1 coat of the pink for it to be effective. At this point, I decided to work on the middle sections of my nails. I thought an ombre design would complement the rest of the look, and I didn't want it to clash with the purple, so I kept it subtle and I used the white gel polish instead. I applied the white polish halfway up the nail and used my ombre brush to blend it towards the top. After giving that a full cure, I applied the white gel polish to the center of the sponge and sponged it onto the middle and the lengths of my nails for a more seamless and opaque ombre effect. For a finishing touch, I added a large pink snowflake design. I made sure to position it near the white ombre section so that the color of the snowflake would stand out more clearly against the light background. I placed 1 dot in the left corner of the nail and added 2 more above and below it, as well as on both sides. I also placed some dots diagonally within each section to complete the layout of the snowflake, and using the leftover baby pink gel polish on my brush, I lightly swiped the dots outwards to form a snowflake. On my right finger, I decided to create a purple snowflake using the same technique to contrast this one. Next, I moved on to the charms. I didn't have any that exactly matched the ones in the inspiration picture, but I found something similar with a white base. I painted them with Blissfully Yours, the lavender gel polish I had used earlier, to make sure that the charms match my nails perfectly. I applied 2 coats of the polish to each charm and cured them for 60 seconds between coats. I skipped the top coat on the charms since I plan to add it later. Now it's time to add the charms to my nails. I used Madame Glam's shiny top coat and added it to my peppermint French nail. While the top coat was still wet, I placed the rhinestone glue on top of the smile line, and then I pressed the charm into place, mixing the glue and the top coat together to secure it. After curing that for 60 seconds, I repeated the same process with the lavender French on my pinky nail, adding the charm in the same way. I made sure to apply the rhinestone glue around the charm as well to ensure that it was properly sealed. For my thumb, I used the ribbon charm, painted it with the same lavender gel polish to match the other charms, and applied it just like the others. Although it wasn't exactly like the charm in the photo, I think it turned out adorable. I applied rhinestone glue to the center of the nail and then carefully dragged it towards the sidewalls in the shape of a French tip. Afterward, I placed a pearl charm in the center and added some smaller pearls along the smile line to finish the design with a touch of glam. And here's the finished result. I'm happy with how it turned out. It's cute and girly, and the mix of pink and purple adds a fun contrast to the design. I think this design is perfect for anyone who loves purple and wants something festive and girly. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys in my next one.